Point of order, the Honourable Darren Hughes.
Can we get an indication as to when that bill will be laid on the table? It appears presently. That's fantastic. That's sort of real-time legislative progress. Fantastic.
The member, happy to advise the member that there is now a bill on the table.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Immigration, I move that the Immigration Act 2009 Amendment Bill now be read for the first time, and I should say the Minister's not here tonight because he and his wife have just had a child, and that's a cause of great celebration. But I won't talk about squawking children too much because I certainly don't want to upset Mr. Chauvel. I don't intend to use my full quota of speaking time for a bill that's so short. I'd like to take the time, however, to note that the Immigration Act was passed in this House last year with considerable support. Both the government and Her Majesty's loyal opposition understand the importance of immigration and the importance of this Act in modernising and future-proofing immigration legislation. Work towards implementing the Act is underway, and this bill will support the continuation of that work. It will ensure specified powers and functions in the Act can be exercised early. For example, it's going to allow the Immigration and Protection Tribunal to be set up and the Chair to initiate the education and training of members before the Tribunal starts to hear appeals, and it's also going to allow the Chair to begin to work, for example, on a code of conduct for members. The new tribunal is a cornerstone of the new Act, as it's going to enable the streamlining of the appeals system, and it's been put in place to reduce duplication and delay in the system. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a significant piece of legislation, and implementation of the changes being introduced is indeed a sizable task. Section 474 was included in the Immigration Act to allow certain implementation work to be done by the Department of Labour before the rest of the Act comes into effect, and this bill is going to bring that section into force on the day after the Royal Assent. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Members, the question is the motion be agreed to. I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, could I, in the spirit of the House, congratulate the Minister and his wife on the birth of the latest asset to the family, their child. I'm sure we'd all join in congratulating that. That is a wonderful moment. Could I acknowledge that? Could I acknowledge and provide my sympathy to the Speaker who's just sat down, who's obviously drawn the short straw, Mr. Finlayson. Had he been in charge of this bill as an eminent lawyer, would have not done what his Cabinet colleague has done, and that is made an omission in the supplementary order paper in respect of Section 474. So I commend the Attorney-General for biting the bullet, drawing the short straw and coming down to the House and sort of leading with his chin to correct the mess-up of both the Minister of Immigration and his venerable associate, Kate Wilkinson, who, as we speak, as I said last night, is probably dropping acid, that is folic acid, who has everything that woman has touched as a minister has sort of turned to mush, from the folic acid issue to the Department of Conservation issue. It's sort of been a litany of mistakes. But I commend Mr. Finlayson, and I say that had he again been in charge of this bill as an eminent lawyer, which I am not, I'm sure there would have been no omission, because the reason we are standing here tonight, spending taxpayers' money, sir, and the Labor opposition will support and facilitate this amendment, but we will make a couple of points going through, is because of the incompetence of this government. We wrote most of the Immigration Act in government, and we supported its passage and most of its amendments through, which this government passed on coming to office. But it is amazing that because of an omission which was in relation to the commencement of Section 474 of the Immigration Act, which, as the Attorney-General has pointed out, allows the Governor-General to appoint the chair and members of the Immigration and Protection Tribunal, to publish immigration instructions for the granting of visas under the new legislation, and to approve and issue the forms that will be used for the application process under the new legislation, among other things. I would just note that it was the Immigration Minister who has, earned the title, sir, I think in this place and others, is the maestro. the maestro of the Mount Albert by-election, which went so wrong, the person who was in charge of the World Cup broadcasting debacle, the person who earlier this month announced a new retirement immigration package. Embarrassingly for him, of course, he didn't look back in his history. The same policy, of course, which had been investigated by the former National Government in 1999 before they lost office and dismissed because it was unworkable. I note also, and I hope that the Associate Minister may indeed take a call, because of course she shares responsibility for the hash that has been made of this. It is interesting that we are spending thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money to come down to this House. Well, I couldn't comment on that, to correct a basic error in an SOP that had this government, and you can't blame the officials for this because the minister is responsible under our Westminster system, thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money to correct a basic error. And I hear from the back a sort of squawk from Parliament's man, Mr Garrett, who says, sit down and we'll get it done faster. Because, of course, Mr Garrett on the one hand comes from a party, sir, who believes in open public debate, who believes in, well, he says he does, and his leader says he does, who believes in empowering communities and having open, transparent debate. A principle, sir, which he has never exhibited on the select committee of which he resides, a person who is led by the nose, of course, sir, by the National Party.
Point of order, David Garrett.
Mr. Speaker, two points, and one which is no record here. I guess that Mr Cosgrove is talking about something utterly unrelated to the Immigration Amendment Bill, and secondly, he's referring in derogatory terms to members of the House, both present and not.
Well, excuse me, I'm on my feet. No correspondence entered into when I'm ruling. Can I just make the point that, yes, I think there is some merit to what the member who raised the point of order says. Mr Cosgrove was straying out of the area. He was provoked, I could guess, because of interjections, but I think he's had his fair share and would come back to the bill. Secondly, I didn't take from his comments any particular offence that persons could have, and I make the point to the member raising the point of order. You cannot take offence on behalf of another person. I call on the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove to speak to the bill.
Absolutely, and in speaking to the bill, sir, I think it is important that we have public and parliamentary debate on this issue. It's very germane to this bill. And though Mr Garrett and other members may want us to sort of sit down, shut up and just let these things go through, because of course it suits that member, because in this place, despite being Parliament's man, sir, he, and I'll say it again, sir, is led by the nose by the government to stifle any parliamentary debate that may not suit his purpose. So I'm sorry to Mr Garrett. He will have to stay awake. He will have to earn the taxpayer's shilling and do his job and sit in the chamber and actually listen to the debate, sir.
The Honourable John Carter.
Mr Speaker, I thought just a minute or two ago I heard you give a direction to the member on his feet that he should address the bill. And in listening to his address since the time that you gave him that instruction, he has done nothing but berate a member of this House and hasn't made any reference to the bill at all.
Order. I have some sympathy with the point that the member's made. I invited the member to address the bill. What Mr Garrett's views are on anything is not relevant for this member's particular presentation on the bill. I invite the member to come back to the Immigration Act 2009 Immigration Bill. Point of order. The Honourable Darren Hughes.
Mr Speaker, sorry. You'll be chairman very shortly. I've got great faith in you.
Is this a demotion or a promotion?
It's going to be a big promotion for you. Within 30 minutes, I see great things in your future, sir. I think you'll be a chairman very shortly. This bill, of course, sir, was laid on the table just minutes ago, so the member has not had a chance to look at it. Clearly the debate will be a little wide, and if the government's support parties are going to interject and just, be plain nasty, and to use the language of Dr Nick Smith, personal denigration, then of course Mr Cosgrove, as a senior Labour frontbencher, is going to defend his honour in that particular respect. And all I can ask is that the acting leader of the House, Mr Power, maybe bring his calm hand to proceedings at this time, because it seems to me at this rate we risk spiralling way out of control.
I won't respond to that. I refuse to respond.